So those of you who watched the last video that I released in wonderful Lancashire, you'll remember at the end of the video that I said I was coming up to Scotland, and that's where I am right now. I actually had a one-to-one photography workshop here in Scotland today, and I kind of figured, well, I've driven all the way up here now, so I might as well stay for the night and do some landscape photography for myself. So that's exactly what I'm doing. However, the workshop was on the eastern side of Scotland, quite close to the Cairngorms National Park, which actually is somewhere that I have never been. I've always wanted to come, but I've never been. I'm not quite there yet. I'm en route and I've still got about another 50 minutes, but I was driving through the main road. The main road is only about 200 metres that way. It's where the Red Beast is parked. But we've just got this beautiful pine forest, super attractive. The gorgeous afternoon light was shining through, and I just had to stop to see if there was anything worth photographing, because it feels like there's a lot of potential here. Now, you've probably seen at the start of the video, I've been eyeing up this beautiful oak tree here. It really caught my eye because it's all twisted, and the rest of this forest, being pine trees, is very sort of straight, uniformed and regimented. So this sort of stood out like a sore thumb in a good way. However, it's not quite working, and as you guys know, a beautiful scene doesn't necessarily mean a beautiful photograph. Just can't figure out a composition, and the light isn't really the best. So I'm going to move on, because I do think there's potential in this gorgeous pine forest. And yeah, let's see what else we can find. Right, so as I'm wandering around this forest here, I thought it'd be, I don't know, a nice idea to just stop and actually explain to you guys what it is that I'm physically looking for as I'm wandering around, because a lot of time I don't really explain it. Now, it differs from place to place. I'm not always looking for the same things, but in this instance, a lot like the oak tree that I showed you there at the start of the video, I'm looking for something a little bit different. You know, it's very uniformed in here, very regimented, like I said, which is nice. I do like that as well, and there's definitely potential for a photograph in that sense. But I've got a couple of examples here. Firstly, him. I think it's like a beech sapling tree or something, but I ain't going to get a photograph of him because it's not quite working, but he's a good example of the sort of thing that I'm looking for. He breaks the mould, you know, something a little bit different. And I think that's what's going to work here, because it's looking like we're not really going to get any light. So that's the next thing that I'm looking for, something that stands out. Another example here somewhere, right off in the background, you'll see there's a kind of fallen pine tree. Again, I went over there, it doesn't quite work compositionally, but I thought it'd be interesting to show you the sort of thing that I'm looking for. Something a bit different. So, this is a beautiful forest, like I said. I'm going to continue exploring. So for the past 20 or 25 minutes, we actually got a really nice golden glow of sunset light flooding into the forest. You can probably see a few remnants on my face and off over here in the background as well. And I have been set up, you can probably just see down here in the corner. We had this beautiful scene here, but I don't think I'm going to take a photograph. I couldn't find a subject. I definitely couldn't find anything different, like I was trying to explain to you guys before. And then in this situation, we just had some nice side light, and I was just pointing my camera into the pretty light and trying to take a shot. And for me, it just wasn't quite working. There was no real composition there. I think it still would have been pleasant, you know, because that light was so nice. It probably would have just about carried it. But it wasn't quite working compositionally, and for me, that means I'm not going to take a photograph. It's been incredible to be in this forest, but a little bit frustrating that I haven't got an image. However, I'm going to go now back to my hostel, or to my hostel, I haven't been there yet, and I shall see you guys in the morning in the Cairngorms National Park. So I finally made it up to the hostel after a pretty long drive, and as I got settled in, I enjoyed a nice beer next to the log burner and decided to head out to the local pub for some fish and chips. So this here is the location that I'd planned for my first photograph this morning, and yeah, it's kind of somewhere that I researched online, was checking on my OS maps and figured this will be a nice place to come for sunrise. And the idea was that the sun's going to rise behind you guys and all of this area was going to get filled with some beautiful morning light. Now this place is called the Linn of Dee. Dee because here is the River Dee, and Linn, I believe, I think we have this word in Northern England as well, but it's basically like a gorge, as you can see here, but more specifically when a sort of river runs through it and cuts through all the rock and creates basically what you can see there. And it's absolutely gorgeous. However, I don't think it's quite doing it for me photographically, and I don't know if it's because of the bridge, because it's man-made. It's not something that I often shoot. Nothing wrong with shooting stuff that's man-made. I think it just doesn't quite do it for me. But most of all, I just find there's a lot of distractions. All the sort of cliff edges are kind of zigzagging all over each other. These trees here are kind of creating a little bit of a problem compositionally. I think the worst thing, to be honest, is probably the snow. It's just creating all this mess and chaos down here and these crazy contrasts. Maybe things would change once the light comes up and fills it up. It fills this Linn up with some beautiful morning light, like I said, but no, it's not quite doing it for me, which is a little bit unfortunate. So I've got a little bit of a plan B, which is to head back towards where I parked the car, which is back in that direction, and it should open out a little bit. So I think I'm going to spend my morning there, and it's nice and clear, so at some stage we are going to get some nice light. I'm just hoping that the next area that I go to is going to inspire me a little bit more. I don't know what's going on. Perhaps I'm having a little bit of a creativity block, because the same happened last night, didn't it, when I was in the woodland? I just didn't really want to take a photograph because it wasn't quite doing it for me. Anyway, let's hope this next place can inspire me a little bit more to get the old camera out. Set up. First shot of, not even the day, first shot of the trip. I have to admit, I'm really struggling, and I think it's my creativity. I think I'm just in a little bit of a dip. If you watched my last video when I was in Lancashire, towards the end of the video I just kind of lost interest, lost my inspiration, and I was struggling a little bit then, and I think this is just a sort of carrying on from that. This is honestly absolutely stunning. What an area, the Cairngorms. I can't believe that I've never been here. This specific landscape that I'm in right now, honestly, it's one of my favourite types of landscapes to photograph. When I'm sat at home and I'm longing to be out with my camera, half the time, at least half the time, these are the sorts of landscapes that I'm thinking of. These sorts of wild, isolated areas in Scotland, like Glen Affric and Torridon, where you've got these sort of sporadic areas of Scots pine trees, perhaps remnants of the Caledonian forest, you know, snow, beautiful gorges, rivers. So I don't know what's wrong with me, basically, because I'm exactly where I want to be. Something's not working up here. However, first shot of the trip, and all of the lack of inspiration aside, I've been struggling a little bit just to find a composition as well, because the light has now become quite harsh, and it's kind of reflecting off the snow, and the contrast is just crazy. Because obviously the snow is such pure white, and then when it gets that morning sunlight on it, it's even brighter. But then all these rocks, especially in these gorgy areas, so many deep shadows and, you know, super dark black. So that real high contrast is really difficult to play with. But here, what I found more than anything is a little bit of an S-curve in this specific gorge, and I'm really glad I'm going to get a photograph of a gorge or a linn, which this perhaps is, where you've got this water making its way through, and you can see the way that it's cut all of the rock throughout the course of its journey over thousands of years, I suppose, probably a lot longer than that. So to me, that's kind of what this area is all about, so that's why I'm really happy with this shot. Now, settings, I'll start with ISO 100 and f9, nice and simple there. Now that's giving me a shutter speed of 1/4 of a second, which in this case is a fairly long exposure because the water's moving quite fast, and it's giving me that sweet spot of capturing the movement of the water, but also retaining a little bit of the detail in this sort of cascade we're going to have on the right hand side of the frame. Another thing that's important with regards to my setup is the old polarizer. I've got him on the front, and again, as always, he's just cutting that glare, that sheen off the top of the water there. However, I've only got him about half utilised because I actually quite like some of the glare on the right hand side of the frame. I think it just adds a little bit extra to the photograph, whereas on the left hand side it's nice to cut through the glare and capture some of the rocks underneath this water, this river here. It looks fantastic. So yeah, pretty happy with this. Again, a bit of a downer that I'm feeling a little bit uninspired, but I think I'm going to grab this one now because the light is actually quite nice. Another thing as well, by the way, I'm using the 16-35 lens at 16mm. I've got to put my hand over the top right hand corner of the lens as I'm taking the photograph to try and get rid of any of the sun flare, and that looks fantastic. Actually pretty happy with that one, to be honest. If not anything, it tells a really nice story of this landscape. So I'm absolutely delighted that I managed to get that photograph in the midst of all this lack of inspiration. I don't even know what to call it. As I was packing the old bag up there, I was kind of thinking, it's a bit dark that is, I was kind of thinking, I think I'm just a little bit tired. What, we're travelling all the way up here and having that workshop yesterday out on a big hike, which was quality, but just took it out of me a little bit, you know, and then sleeping in a hostel, generally I never really get a good sleep anyway. So without sounding like I'm complaining too much, what I'm trying to say is I think I'm just a little bit tired rather than feeling super uninspired. But my advice to anyone that does ever hit this brick wall is just accept it. You know, don't try and question why you're feeling uninspired. Just keep going out with your camera and the mojo will come back eventually. That's what's worked from my experience anyway. Yeah, just don't stress about it too much. The light's pretty harsh now, as you can see. So I'm going home. I'm going back down south. Cairngorms have been absolutely awesome. I've seen tons of wild deer, loads of red squirrels actually as well, and not many people. I haven't seen any people on this little walk, so that's a really nice ratio for me. But yeah, hopefully by my next video I'll be a little bit more sprightly. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, please give the video a like if you have a quick second. Thanks for the support, and I shall see you on the next one. Out.